Can you guys hear me? Perfect. Somebody say something real quick, just to make sure.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry for my little tardiness today. Just been a kind of a day. How's everyone doing? It's cold as shit today. I think today was the coldest day. Or maybe it's just me.
It was cold and wet in Miami too.
Yeah?
Never got above 55.
Okay. All right, Phil.
I mean, it was that's cold.
55 sounds real nice right now. Yeah, it got down to single digits here overnight. Like, it's pretty cold.
You have snow?
I mean, we got snow last week and leftover from that still, like a remnant on the street, but not really any new snow that's really accumulated. But yeah, there's definitely signs of snow on the ground here for sure. For sure.
5 inches of snow in New Orleans. New
Yeah.
Orleans, 5 inches yesterday.
Oh my God. Yeah, and climate change is not real, you know.
New Orleans actually got like almost 11. It's like and then parts of Florida got 11 inches too. It's like a state record. It was bonkers.
Oh my God.
Like generational, like the last time it snowed like that was 130 years ago in New Orleans. So,
That's crazy. 11 inches in New Orleans. Like what?
yeah. And they don't have plows, right? Like
Yeah.
the snow doesn't go anywhere. They got to wait for it to melt. And that's it. And it's
Yeah,
not
I was
gonna
gonna
melt for a few
say,
days.
do they like infrastructure wise, they're not ready for that shit. Like, so are they just like shut down?
Yeah,
It's
I
kind of
mean,
like
it's
DC.
the cold air's still there. It's going to warm up later in the week, but for the next couple of days, it's still going to be there.
Crazy. I mean, it's not unlike DC when you get more than fucking 6 inches here. The city shuts down.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, our roads were garbage even after 6 inches for like days. So
Yeah, precisely. Anyways. All right, well, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Sorry for my little delay. Yeah, just trying to get everything all wrapped up before hopping on, and it took me a little bit longer than I would have liked. So yeah, apologize about the tardiness. Just a few announcements. One more day. So I'm putting in an order for the hits from the past tomorrow. So for those of you who forgot to get your order in or want to add more stuff, you have one more day. So send it to me so I can get that all in for you. But yeah, that's that. Sent an email about this as well, but I need to wrap up enrollment for next month. So if you still have a invoice outstanding, take care of that if you want to join. If not, just shoot me an email, shoot me a text or message through. You can reply directly to that email, the Square email that you get, and it'll come to me. Just let me know that you're skipping a month, just so that I know who's joining and I can wrap up all that stuff. Also, the theme, in case you didn't see my email, the theme next month, I'm calling it a game box. I think I'm going to call it actually dirt box because that's cooler sounding. But it's essentially like a horizontal tasting of different soil types using Gamay as the vehicle. That's a common denominator. So it's going to be Gamay from Beaujolais, which is grown on granite. I may get out of Beaujolais just because, you know, we've featured Beaujolais so much, but also Beaujolais is delicious. So, but anyways, so it's going to be one grown on granite, one grown on like full volcanic soil from Rhone, just outside of Beaujolais, towards Rhone, going towards Loire, and then I'm gonna do one from Loire that's grown on like Nantes, where Muscadet comes from, so grown on like sand and clay. And then the last one is going to be, it's still up it hasn't been finalized, but it may be Oregon with some limestone thrown in. It may be somewhere with sand. But yeah, trying to figure that out. But nonetheless, the whole point of it is that the whole idea is that we're going to get a little nerdy. We're going to get geeky about the dirt, the soil type. So but Gamay being the kind of the one star, like the common denominator through it all. So yeah, that's next month. So I figure a lot of you on this screen right now are part of Boj Box. It would be good. I thought it'd be a good supplement to that. Just to taste Gamay from outside of Beaujolais, that kind of what it tastes like and why. And then as well as for those of you who never joined Boj Box or did not join this year, but particularly ones who've never joined, this is a good kind of preview way to get a sense of what Boj Box is like. Not exactly, because obviously it's not all Beaujolais, but at least you get a sense of why I put together Boj Box every year. So yeah, there's that. So I need to wrap that up. So let me know. That's about all the announcement that I have. Last but not least, we are donating to Washington Youth Garden this month. So if you want to donate alongside 6 Foot Wine Club, the link is right there. Or learn more about it, the link is right there in the chat box. Any questions about Case Club or next month's box or whatnot before we get into it? Excellent. Well, hearing no questions, let's get into the wine. We're tasting this guy today. 2022 Escala Humana Livvera Valle Bequignol is what we're tasting today. A lot of it's a mouthful to say. Escala Humana actually means human scale. The whole story behind this wine is that this is a young guy who's breaking away from kind of the traditional kind of a fashionable style, which is Malbec, away from all of that and finding these kind of like smaller forgotten vineyards, working with the forgotten varieties, and then doing it where it doesn't make sense. He only does it as far as a humans can take it. He doesn't want to use machines. He doesn't want to do these kind of conventional agro farming kind of a business of a wine. So hence the name Escala Humana, human scale. But pretty excited about this wine. I've never had Bequignol until I came through this wine, and I had to, learn something new every day. I'm still learning something new about wine every day, and this wine club also gives me a great opportunity to come across wines like this. And even somebody who works in the wine, doesn't necessarily come across all the time. So it's quite cool. So pretty excited. It's kind of like, and then we'll get into it. This is like an Argentinian history in a bottle. And there's a lot of similarity that I see between Mendoza and like Napa and U.S. and Argentine wine history, and then we'll get into that as well when we in a little bit. But let's look at the map. Here we go. So there's a map of Argentina, right? We've been looking at it for the last 2 weeks. We kind of talked about, this Andes running through. That's essentially what divides between Chile and Argentina. And because of that high peaks blocking all the rain and clouds and moisture, Chilean side is much more wet, much wetter. There's a lot more precipitation. There's a lot more water. But because all that gets blocked on the other side of Argentina, it gets very, very dry, especially as you go north on Salta. I know this is kind of cut off here, but as you go to Salta, it gets really, really dry. I mean, it's desert, essentially. I believe, I forget which is, if it's on the Chilean side, but I'm willing to bet it's on the Argentinian side, because obviously, from what I'm saying right now, it is the driest place on Earth in terms of a precipitation. So it gets quite dry, gets pretty hot. But what makes viticulture possible, and not only possible, but ideal here, is the altitude, right? So as you go up high in altitude, you get all that strong UV rays that helps with developing flavors and ripening, sugar development, flavor development, phenolic development, all that stuff, right? That comes with growing up on slopes, up on high in altitude. And as well as the warmth helps with that. But because of that huge diurnal shift of it being desert and a high altitude, it gets really cold at nighttime, keeping it very fresh acidity, gives a vibrancy to the wines without lacking any ripeness. and concentration. And that's essentially why Argentina is such a great place to grow grapes. And because it's dry, there's much less threat from pests. It's easier to farm organically, though that is not the kind of a norm of the wine industry. Again, very similar to kind of US. The majority of the wine is very much of a big kind of a conventional business, bulk business. So a lot of agro-farm kind of approach is taken to the wine industry here as well. But if you were to farm organically, it's not a bad place to farm organically. It's not a hard, super difficult place to farm organically. Like unlike Virginia, for example, is a very, very difficult place to farm organically because it's just so moist, it's so humid. But yeah, so we talked about Salta, Tucumán, Catamarca, this kind of northern region, being home of Torontes, much higher up in altitude. The altitude gets really, really high up here. We're getting near 10,000 feet, which is very high for viticulture. I mean, it's just very high in general. When we get to our final wine next week, we're going to get up to some serious height. I mean, I think that one's grown in like 9,000 feet, which I didn't know was possible. But yeah, it gets quite high. And then the majority of it being the center right here, La Rioja, San Juan, Mendoza. This is basically where 90% of the Argentinian wine, the big bulk of it, is where this is made. This is essentially like Napa of US. Napa being California being the biggest producer, but even within California, we're really talking about Napa being the biggest in terms of quantity. And this is the same thing here. Mendoza is where we're probably most familiar with, right across the Andes from Santiago in Chile. This is where that, typical, very famous and popular style Malbec. And also, not just the conventional Malbec, but this is where the oldest kind of wineries are set up here. So you find some of the oldest vineyards as well as wineries in Argentina found all in Mendoza, particularly around Luján de Cuyo and Uco Valley as well, where we are this week. So yeah, we were in Uco Valley last week, and we're in Uco Valley again. It gets much hotter here. It gets lower in elevation than Salta, but even within Mendoza, in general, it's lower in elevation. But even within it, there's sub-regions like Uco Valley where it gets higher. I mean, you can see it how closer it is. It's closer than the rest of Mendoza to the Andes, so it gets higher up in elevation. And because of that, a lot of people are eyeing Uco Valley as it's become really popular in the last decade or two. So you see a lot of really good wines actually coming out of Uco Valley right now. And this is where we are again this year. Oh, and then just as a review, Patagonia, as you go south, because it's southern hemisphere, it gets cooler. So the temperature-wise is actually much cooler here. So this is where you're going to find some non-typical varieties that you would think of Argentina. So like there's some even Riesling grown here. There's a Pinot Noir coming out of here. Some cool climate varieties essentially that's grown here in Argentina. But really for the majority of it, we're talking about the central part, San Juan, La Rioja, and Mendoza, but really Mendoza. But for all intents and purposes for this week, we're in Uco Valley. But if you want to get even more specific, this is it's right on the label on the side of the bottle. It's a El Zampal area of Uco Valley, and within that, it comes from Livvera vineyard. So we're talking about a single vineyard bottling here from El Zampal, Uco Valley, Argentina. So which is quite specific. All right, let's talk about who makes this for a bit. Escala Humana, like I said, human scale. Is these three really that you should be aware of. But so Escala Humana is the name of the winery. It's not super old. They were started in 2015 by a husband and wife team. So this is Herman, which is in the middle. He's the kind of the main guy who's a winemaker here. His name is on the bottle as well. And then Ayelen. So Herman and Ayelen Macera is a husband and wife team. They're the one who started this winery in 2015. Herman started making wine in 2003. He went to the enology school in Mendoza, very popular, very well-known school. So he went to go study enology there in 2003, and then worked with Mattias Michelini, which is this guy, right? Name like Mattias Michelini, very Italian sounding. Again, going back to the immigrant history of Argentina. Very well-known natural winemaker, particularly here in Uco Valley, Mendoza region. And so Herman kind of worked under Matias and kind of cut his teeth there. And he's been working there since 2016. And then Herman became really interested in the history of Uco Valley. And we mentioned this in the very first week. Uco Valley, Luan de Cuyo, this Mendoza area is where the first immigrants from Europe came in the 18th century, 18th and 19th century. And then this is where they planted kind of the first vineyards and first wineries. That's why the oldest wineries in the country are here. This is where oldest vineyards are here as well. And he became really interested in the history of Uco Valley, and particularly that these kind of like a forgotten, underappreciated places and varieties and vineyards and things like that. And then as he went in further, as the rest of the country was becoming really, enamored with that style, like Parker era style, really big, really overly extracted, powerful, punchy in the face, really hot, a lot of alcohol style of Malbec, he realized that there were these fourth, fifth generation families, immigrant families. I mean, at this point, they're full on Argentinian, but it started with their ancestor coming from Europe, 4 or 5 generations ago, in Uco Valley, who brought vines from Europe. And these were essentially one of the very first vines that were ever planted in Argentina. So he fell in love, and actually both of them were kind of looking for these vineyard sites and different places to source grape from. And they fell in love with 2 of these small vineyards in Uco Valley, where they grew things like, and this is sound wild because you don't think of these things in Argentina, but like Malvasia, Bequignol, Sangiovese, all these kind of varieties that you would think of as Argentina. But those were initial varieties that were brought here by the European immigrants because that's what they had when they left the country. And then they make their wines here at Matias Winery, where Herman used to work. In Tupungato is the name of the town that they're in. So yeah, that's kind of the story of how they got started. Here's a picture of Herman. Yeah, so pretty excited about this bottling and kind of what's happening. By the way, this is Bequignol grape. This is kind of what it looks like. Pretty thin, thinly skinned grape. Anyways, yeah, pretty excited about these kind of young winemakers who are venturing out to discover these kind of old, abandoned, forgotten vineyards. And I mentioned this at the beginning of today. There's a lot of similarity that I see between Argentina and US, as well as Mendoza particularly, and Napa. Both countries founded on immigration, right? European immigration, a lot of Italians, Spanish, as well as French came to, and Swiss actually came to Argentina. Both have old vineyards and varieties that were planted by missionaries, as well as the first wave of immigrants that are still around today, but they've largely kind of been forgotten, right? All because of that Parker era style, that homogeneous style of wine. Here in US, Napa bet their money on Cabernet Sauvignon and that style, and it paid off, and some could arguably is still paying off. And Argentina and Mendoza, when they bet their money on Malbec. In fact, their branding effort around Malbec is something that is actually quite incredible. Something from France that was used as a blending grape variety, and for them to make a single varietal bottling of it, and then kind of attach almost a national identity to it. Like, everybody, when they think of Argentina, they all think of Malbec, right? So that kind of a branding effort went behind it, and it hugely paid off, and it's still paying off, just like Napa did with the Cabernet Sauvignon. But there's a lot of focus now, and I would even call it a movement, especially amongst these kind of young winemakers, that are kind of rediscovering these old mission varieties, old historical vineyards. I mean, we talked a lot about this during the Cali 3.0 box that we did, right? Like all those wines are essentially doing that. People are getting outside of Napa, people are getting outside of Mendoza, people are going to places like Sierra Nevada Hills, people are going to like Stockton Delta area, you know, here people are going to Uco Valley, all the way up in the mountain. Next week's wine is all the way up in the north, like way up in the mountains in the altitude. So things like that is happening, and I think it's super cool and exciting. So, you know, I'm going as far as to say, stop drinking Malbec. You know, I know it's very popular, and if that's your style, you know, by all means, drink it. But, you know, go find some bottlings like this from, you know, some old historical forgotten vineyards, unusual varieties that you haven't heard of. You know, not only are they actually delicious, I find this wine to be incredibly delicious, but they'll probably give you more context behind that bottle of Malbec that you were probably buying and drinking, and probably make it more enjoyable. So that is my little lesson, or my words of advice or my soapbox story today. But yeah. Anyways, so what is this wine? This is 100% sustainably farmed, 70-year-old Bequignol from a single vineyard grown on clay and sandy soil, very typical of this region in Uco Valley. A lot of it is sand. Like I said, it's very deserty on this side, not much moisture. So Bequignol, let's talk about that for a second, because I am, just out of curiosity, has anyone here heard of Bequignol or have tasted Bequignol before? Because I haven't. Like up until like a month ago, I hadn't even heard of it. I didn't even know that was even a grape. So yeah, I did some research. It's a pretty obscure variety, almost disappeared. And even to this day now, there's only about like 600 hectares left in the world. And most of it is found right here in Argentina. Even though it's indigenous to France, it's originally a French grape variety, there's very few vineyards with Bequignol left in France, and it's mostly here in Argentina. I initially thought that this had originated from Jura. I don't know where I got that from, or I think I know where I got it from, which is that, you know, but I found out that it is indigenous to Southwest France. In fact, it kind of goes into Bordeaux region. Research in 2011 showed that Bequignol may have a parent-offspring relationship with the Savagnin grape variety, which is from Jura. So I think that's why I thought it was maybe from Jura. It's not clear which one is a parent or which one is a sibling, but yeah, this is actually Bequignol used to be used as one of the blending variety in Bordeaux, red Bordeaux. There's writing and records of Bequignol being grown and cultivated in Bordeaux between 1763 and 1777, which makes sense because that's about the time when there's a huge influx of immigrants from Europe to Argentina, and that's why things like Bequignol would make it over here. And also the fact that, you know, this is from southwest of France, not Jura, also makes a lot of sense. So a lot of these newer countries, if you go to Chile, Argentina, Mexico, you know, US, a lot of the original kind of mission varieties that came a lot of from southwest of France. That's why there's so much Carignan variety, Carignan grown in California, as well as in Mexico, is because that was the variety that's from southwest of France, and then it was brought here by the first immigrants and missionaries. Anyways, Bequignol is a mid to late ripening grape variety, produces very small berries. The vine can be very vigorous, high yielding, but it's particularly well suited for Argentina because it is heat and drought resistant, which is basically what you want in this part of the world. It is susceptible to mites. A lot of pest problem could exist, but particularly grown on sandy soil, which is much more resistant to pests and mites than like a clay or moisture retaining soil type. So it is particularly well suited for this environment here in Argentina, particularly in Uco Valley. Low in sugar, but high in anthocyanin. It's a geeky word there. All that is to say it makes a light-bodied wine because, you know, sugar means less alcohol development, less glycol, you know, less kind of a body to the wine, but with a plenty of a color saturation. Anthocyanin is just a compound that's responsible for colors in the skins of the red grapes. Pretty rich in that. In fact, that's what they use in Bordeaux for color, to give more color to the Bordeaux blend back in the days. But to me, I don't know if you guys are, how many of you guys are familiar with the Trousseau from Jura, but this has a lot of that kind of Trousseau vibe for me. Yeah, like if I got this blind, first of all, no one should ever blind you with the Bequignol. That's just fucking mean. But if I got this blind, I would probably go somewhere like Trousseau, Jura, that area somewhere, maybe Savoie. Anyways, this is also another reason I also picked this wine was this is also 100% whole cluster. So this is not destemmed. There's a stem inclusion. So we can talk a little bit about what it does to the style of the wine. You can definitely taste the whole cluster here. There's that kind of I don't like to use the word spiciness. A lot of people use that word like it's got the whole cluster stem inclusion spiciness. To me, that's a very different kind of spice than like that the barrel spice, like warming baking spices, but there's definitely some savory things running through here. There's some peppery thing going on here, but there's some other things, which is all just evidence of a whole cluster, which I personally like a lot. So all the tenets of natural, quote unquote, natural wine, minimal interventionist wine that we talk about, spontaneous fermentation, is in concrete eggs for 30 to 45 days, then press off to neutral barrels. There's no new oak on this whatsoever. Spends 8 months in a neutral oak barrels, and then it's bottled unfiltered, unfined, with a touch of sulfur only at bottling. That's essentially what this wine is. Any questions about anything I just went over before we get into the wine? Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, let's taste the wine. Who wants to take the appearance?
I'll do it then.
Excellent, thank you. Here, hold on. Hold up.
City. I should have this memorized by now.
All right, here we go.
Good God. All right.
Start from the appearance.
Give me 2 seconds in because age is catching up with me. All right. Despite what you said about the fining and the filtering, I think this wine is actually pretty clear.
Yeah, I'll still call this clear. Yeah, it's definitely being racked off. Spent some time, so for sure.
From a color perspective, I would call this medium intensity, especially, it's not like a super dark grape, but
Yep.
Not light as well.
Yep.
I like the color a lot. I would say this is ruby-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, I see like a little bit like orangey, coppery kind of hue in it, but yeah, for the most part, I will still call this ruby for sure.
Around the edges, I think, because of the lightness of it.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know what else to describe it. It's just I really like it. So I'm just sucking.
Agreed. I really like the color too. I really like the color. Yeah, appearance wise, there's no sediment, obviously no gas. So yeah, really good.
Yeah, I thought that was, given how you described how it's produced, I was quite interested that it wasn't a little cloudier, but great.
Yeah, I mean, it just spent, after 30, 45 days in concrete eggs, and it spends 8 months in the barrel. So it's probably, it gets racked off from the concrete eggs into the barrel. Then it spends another 8 months, so it has time to kind of settle, and then it gets racked off. So yeah, that's super cloudy. But you can tell that this is not like fine or filtered wine, but for all intents and purposes, I will still call this very clear.
Very attractive looking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. You get to pick the next person for the news.
All right, Joe, you're next in line. Is that okay?
Mr. Knuble.
He reignited his Brookland real estate group today, so I'm giving it an honor.
Back, I'd self-retired for about 2 months, but Anywho, we're doing the nose.
Yep.
There's some. I think there's some game on here. I wouldn't call it. I mean, I really like it. You know, I don't know if you call it clean or unclean, but you know, it has some of that funk to it.
Yeah, I mean, you like this is not made in some like a lab like setting, you know. Yeah, this is definitely like somebody's like a
Hammy.
garage. But there's a lot of to me.
Essence of hot dog.
Yeah, some meatiness.
Yep.
But that's yeah, there's a lot of kind of savory thing running through, even though there's a ton of really ripe fruit here, there's a ton of savory thing going on. And that's what I like about this wine.
Yeah, I really like this. This is
Yeah. But for this purpose, I would say this wine is clean and this wine is sound. I would say this is faulty or anything like that.
right.
I am just that I'm smelling it now. I have a feeling that this wine's going to open up quite a bit with air. Again,
Yeah,
we'll see.
I open mine at 7 to have with dinner, and it's really pretty potent.
Okay.
It's
All
like
right.
plus medium plus to pronounce.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really expressive, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I smell it here. That's
Yeah.
what it finishes off. Definitely medium plus intense aromas. Ooh, what do you got?
So as far as floral characteristics, I don't know if I really get much of that.
Yeah, me neither. It's not like a huge floral wine. I mean, you could convince me that maybe there's a little bit of like rose petals, maybe a little bit like a geranium kind of thing. But yeah, if anything, it's just like a faint hint of it.
Yeah, I would kind of go straight to like the cooked fruit.
Yeah, what kind of fruit are you getting from green to black here?
See, there's like a jamminess to it, like maybe like a baked rhubarb kind of thing,
Okay,
something like that.
okay. They're baked to rhubarb. Okay. Anything else?
It's just hard to place. It's hard to, it's a little
Does this seem?
orthogonal.
I mean, you said rhubarb. Does it seem
Yeah.
more red or black to you?
It's hard to call. I don't know.
To me, this is more red. I mean, I think there's
Yeah, it doesn't have like that sweetness of like a black thing.
Yeah, to me, this is much lighter, like brighter. I think rhubarb is actually a great call, like a cooked, like baked rhubarb kind of a thing. I get these kind of like red currant. I get some like this raspberry, strawberry, even
Maybe
cherry.
cool.
But like, yeah, it's like a red fruit bomb in here. There's a lot of different kind of fruit that I get. But yeah, more red than black. If anything, maybe like bramble, where like this like you can't really tell it's a red or black, but like really berry-y. But yeah, for me, there's a ton of red fruit. And then you had mentioned some jamminess here. So does it seem like overripe to you, the fruit quality?
No, more like, a kind of like you get like a peppery or an apricot jam, like some of those sort of.
Something like cooked. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think now that you've mentioned that, like I get that like baked rhubarb. But I think that's right. The fruit here is really, really ripe. I don't want to go all the way to like overripe, but this is like super ripe. There's nothing underripe or green about this, like a fruit quality to me. This is like, you even just past the peak, maybe it's like on the second half or like declining part of the fruits ripening journey. But like the character here, I think it's that borderline jamminess, baked stewed fruit. I think it's an excellent call here. And the fact that this is at this high in altitude, yet you're getting this much ripeness on it. Again, it just goes to show that ripening fruit here is not a problem. It's warm. It's got the UV rays and all of that. Any herbaceous, herbal, spice?
Yeah, definitely get the that black pepper
Yeah, little pepper. Yep, for sure.
is pretty potent for
Yeah.
sure.
Like a ton of pepper here, black pepper. Anything else?
Nope. I guess that's it.
Yeah, I get a little bit of pepper. Again, I hate to use these spices, cloves and nutmeg and whatnot, but they're like something. I mean, again, it's not everything that we taste in wine is exactly, it matches up to exactly what these things are. It's just we're trying to signal to each other what's happening in the wine. And to me, this just has just whole whole clusters written all over it. Like as soon as I smell it, I'm like, this is a stem included. This is a whole cluster fermentation, and there's this kind of savory, some like leafy, something like herby. I'm having a hard time putting a word on it, but like something savory, not necessarily like these baking spices.
And like a little oxidative too, right?
Yeah, I don't get the oxidation personally, but it seems very fresh to me. But tomato leaf. Well, I'm seeing here fruit leather bay. Oh, bay leaf. I think bay leaf is actually called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a little bit of that kind of like savory kind of a thing here, which is very, very reminiscent of a whole cluster. A lot of people go here when they're trying to signal to each other that there's a whole cluster happening. But to me, like barrel versus whole cluster are like two completely different kind of a style, two different, completely different expressions. So, but yeah, your call of pepper. I mean, you had mentioned some meat thing. You said hot dogs, some other things. So yeah, you get anything in a secondary or tertiary?
I could see some of that sort of cedar, woody notes,
Something like woodsy. Yeah, again, that's whole cluster. Yeah.
and some of that fruit development. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in that zone somewhat that there's some sort of cooked fruit, some sort of,
Yeah. So this right here.
dried banana. Yeah, like dried fruit is kind of interesting. I could see that, like when you
Yeah.
smell like a pack
So
of.
I agree with you that there's some like cooked fruit in here, but I don't know if it's dried. Cooked fruit, I agree with. But to me, this is very different. Cooked red plum, cooked blackberry. This is very different from this cooked from here. Like bottle aged expression of these things versus just comes from really warm, long vine hanging kind of a place is a very different kind of expression. And to me, it's still very much in the primary because it definitely is not bottle aging. Like this wine is way too young. It's 2022 to be
Sure, but I still I could see like some fig, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you get some like a dry fruit here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, to me, it's a ton of that red fruit, fresh, really ripe, like almost overripe, really fresh fruit, as well as those like cooked like rhubarb, cooked jam. I think that your earlier call about like jam, I think is a really good one. There's some of that going on here for me as well. But we're all getting some like savory thing, right? Like you throw out some like spices as well as
Nitrites.
yeah, and then Dave's called out like tomato leaf and leather. Whitney and Lisa are calling out bay leaves, which I think is an excellent call.
I'm gonna stick with hot dogs.
But yeah, like what I'm getting at here is that I think we're all picking up some savory note with this wine. It's not just these cooked, jammy kind of a fruit bomb that you all almost expect. But there's this level of savory layer, and that's I'm trying to get all of you to kind of calibrate your senses, or at least build a sensory reference point for a whole cluster. Like you're getting all this fruit, but you're also getting these kind of savory notes. Whatever you're getting, whether you call that's up to you, your paradigm. Like you call that for you, maybe whole cluster is always hot dogs. Maybe for you, whole cluster is always bay leaf. Maybe for you, it's always tomato leaf. But whatever you're getting out of this wine, record that in your memory as a whole cluster. And then, so as you go on your wine journey, you will start to see this pattern. When you see get these flavor profiles in your paradigm. Say, is there stem inclusion in this? And then you can check it and start to see if that's what it is for you and whether you like that. Again, it's to help you articulate your preference later on. Like if you ever go to a restaurant and told Sam, it's like, I really enjoy stem inclusion, whole cluster fermentation versus a destem fermentation. Like that signals to me right away, like this motherfucker knows some wine. Like he, but the fact that you can kind of call that out and you can sense that on your tasting is what it's all about. It's what I'm trying to get you guys to notice. So yeah, know that this is all 100% whole cluster. All right, excellent job, Joe. You get to pick the next person for the palette.
I guess right below me is Phil.
All right, I'm here.
Let's do it, Phil.
This wine is dry,
Bone dry.
bone dry.
Like so much fruit, but no sugar in it whatsoever. Yeah, bone dry. Very, very good. Acidity.
I'm getting a pretty healthy dose of acidity too. I'd go to a medium plus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, high end of medium, low end of medium plus.
Yeah.
Bequignol in general is not a hugely highly acidic grape, but this wine, that's a decent amount of acidity. Yeah, so medium plus to medium, somewhere in there, totally.
And I get something on my lips after drinking it. I guess that's the tannin, but kind of like dries out my lips. Is that
tannin?
And
that is exactly what tannin is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to say that is a lot more than we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
So I'll go with the medium to a medium plus with the tannin. And
I don't get, do you guys get a lot of tannin on this thing?
my
I don't
lips
get a lot of tannin here.
We mostly have
yeah, I mean, there's definitely tannin here for sure, but I'll go all the way up to medium plus here. Like, Phil, there's some wines that will, like, we've had some wines that were like, you taste it and you're like, holy fuck, like it's like a lot of those the wines that we had from Georgia, like those were tannic. But compared to that, I would say this is much lower. And Bequignol is not meant to be that. Like Bequignol is not meant to be this hugely like tannic, meant to be aged for a long time. It's more for youthful consumption, all of that. So there's a little bit of that. And obviously, when you do any kind of skin maceration as well as stem inclusion, you are going to pick up some tannin. So there's definitely evidence of that. But to me, this is like still in the higher end of medium minus lower end of medium. At most medium, but yeah, I wouldn't really heard that on this one.
Okay.
And very, very like fine tannin too. It's not like super chewy and rustic. Yeah.
And then I get alcohol. It's got to be pretty good. It's a 13, 12 and a half, 13. I mean, I feel it.
Yeah, it's 13 and a half. I mean, not hugely high, but yeah, I agree with you. I feel it. I feel some warmth here. I'm feeling warm. Still in the medium for sure, but like higher end of medium, lower end of medium plus is kind of where we are with the 13 and a half.
And a body of that's a low end of medium. I think it's not healthy.
Yeah,
not heavy medium.
Exactly. Not usually super body is usually lighter bodied grape, like anyway. That's why it's always used as like a blending grape. Like on its own, it's kind of very light, but it gets a lot of color. So, but yeah, I think that's a perfect call. Like lower end of medium, higher end of medium minus is kind of like where the body is. We're going to talk about mousse, obviously. Flavor intensity.
Flavor intensity. I get the flavors, but I get overwhelming with the I'll give that a medium too. I'm feeling I don't taste the jamminess of the fruit, but
Yeah.
I smell it. So I'll go with a medium on the flavor intensity.
I kind of agree with you. I think this is more expressive on the nose than it is on the palate, at least right now. And usually that's also a good sign that, when I think about whether some wine would open up or not, when I see the nose being really expressive, but on the palate, it just hasn't quite gotten there yet, it usually makes me think, okay, maybe a little more oxygen and it will kind of open up. And I think that's the case here. At least with my wine. Like I get a lot more on the nose than I get on the palate, but I still wouldn't say this is shy in any way. So high end of medium, low end of medium plus. I can easily see this getting to medium plus, squarely medium plus as this opens up. But yeah, right now I'm kind of with you. It's like high end of medium, low end of medium plus, somewhere around there. Characteristics. Do you confirm everything that Joe called out? Anything else?
I agree. I didn't get much floral in the taste at all.
I agree with you. I don't think it is a floral. I don't get much floral on this.
Yeah, and I got more like almost a blueberry, almost not a
little blue.
Red,
okay.
There was the red fruit flavor too, but not cherry flavor, not a sweet flavor, but maybe an like a blueberry is the best I can.
Okay. Yeah, to me, this is like very much in the red fruit territory. Like even more so than one on the nose. Like I don't really get much black fruit on the palate at all. This is all right here. Like red currant really speaks to me.
I agree with that.
Yeah, strawberry really speaks to me right now. There's also, and going to Joe's point, it's like just not fresh, but like it's also like that cooked, stewed, jammy, almost candied even. Not necessarily like high tone artificial way, but like just really like concentrated, cooked kind of a fruit. I get a ton of that. Any herbaceous herbal spice?
Yeah, somebody wrote tomato leaf, I guess, or bay leaf. I get that.
Yeah,
I get that in the taste.
Yeah, I think bay leaf is an excellent call in this wine. Yeah, there's definitely that kind of savory, herbaceous kind of a component to this wine, and that right there, folks, is stem inclusion, or whole cluster. And not everybody likes whole cluster, and this is like huge split point. Like even in Burgundy, like some producers are full whole cluster producers. Some people are full on destem school. Like they don't really, and some people do like mixture of both, but it kind of really divides. And even in the consumer side, like there are people who divides on a whole cluster versus destemmed. But to me, what I love about a lot of people who talk about destem is like, you get the purity. It just seems so much more pure. You get the real fruit, what the Pinot is supposed to represent. But to me, what I love about the whole cluster is that when I think about grapes, when I think about wine, I think about not just a fruit. It's also first and foremost a plant, right? It's a vine. And to me, being able to taste every part of that plant, like a little bit of that savory side of it, along with the fruit, when done well, to me is the best expression of that fruit. And I think whole cluster does that. And some people don't like that for that reason. But to me, this kind of the savory, when done well, when it's not done well, when you harvest the grape too soon before the phenolics get ripened, it can get really like green and like bell peppery and fresh cut grass and all that shit. But if you do it right, you farm it right, and then you include the stems, you get these beautiful savory notes like bay leaves and tomato leaf and like some of these things. And to me, that's delicious, especially on the backs of a really ripe, like almost cooked fruit that we're talking about. you're having both of that really like sweet fruit and the savory herbs, which is awesome. But yeah, you're getting some little like tomato leaf, bay leaf.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. And I definitely got the pepper that Joe mentioned.
Yeah. There's a ton of black pepper here for sure. Like many turns. And again, that's also oftentimes a sign of a whole cluster as well. And there's some varietal thing that's happening here. Syrah in general, for example, also gives off that kind of a peppery kind of a thing, but that's also evidence of a whole cluster. Any secondary, any tertiary things?
No, I didn't get any yeasty flavor or no, I didn't taste any oak in the wine.
Yeah.
I didn't get any tertiaries.
Yeah, me neither. To me, this wine lives right here in the private world. Very fresh, really ripe, cooked fruit, as well as some candied fruit, some of that kind of bay leaf, tomato leaf, these kind of like a savory whole cluster thing, and red fruit, like just the berries. Berries is what we got here. Length. How long is the finish?
I was going to say it was short, but as I have a couple of more tastes, it stays in my mouth a lot longer than I thought. So it's not real long. So I'd say a medium, maybe on the edge of medium plus, but not really strong length.
Yeah, I agree with that call. I think this is like a medium plus, low end or medium plus, higher end of medium, like right in that area. I can see it again going to medium plus right now. I want to go more towards medium, but like it's not short.
Yeah. So as a conclusion, I think that this is a drink it now, but it has potential for aging because it has a pretty good alcohol backbone. It has some tannin in it, and there's acid, a pretty good size, healthy acid. So we could age this, and my conclusion would be a good to very good, kind of in the middle.
Yeah. How long would you age this for?
Well, 3 to 5 years.
Okay. I agree with your quality level call here, right? It's balanced. We call it medium plus on the nose, maybe medium plus on the palate, but somewhere in the medium to medium plus, right? On the concentration. Complexity, we called out all the red fruit, bunch of different red fruit, some of that bay leaf savory thing, different characters of the fruit as well. But not a whole lot of secondary or tertiary, so that's also like medium, I would say. And then the length, we call that somewhere between medium and medium plus as well. You can see it's going to medium plus, but somewhere landing in medium. It's landing in medium right now. But so yeah, balance, medium plus, medium to medium plus concentration, medium complexity, medium to medium plus length. So when you put it all together, we're landing somewhere between good and very good, depending on how generous you want to feel. You can go to very good, you can be good. I think either way is perfectly fine. Where I do disagree with you, Phil, is the aging potential. In general, Bequignol is not. Again, I've never had Bequignol until this bottle, so I don't have a reference point for what an aged Bequignol is like. But I do know that like most Bequignol, like most blending grapes, is not meant to be aged for a long time. It's mostly for like youthful early consumption. And even tasting it now, right? Like we talked about tannin and acid as a structural component. Acid, medium to medium plus, decent, right? Tannin, we're on the medium minus the medium, not a whole lot. So it's like decent, but not a super strong backbone. And then we do have a concentration. We don't have a whole lot of complexity here. To me, what I like about this wine is this kind of freshness, all the fresh fruit juxtaposed against the savory kind of a back. And I think if we lost that freshness and then start going into non-fruit things on top of herbaceous things, I am afraid that this wine may be just like losing its kind of an edge. All that savory without the fruit, it just may not be right. So I would say, yeah, I think it's perfectly fine, especially because of the acid call you were saying with some tannin. I think it's perfectly fine for the next 2 to 3 years. But honestly, I wouldn't really age for much longer. So yeah, drink it over for the next 2 to 3 years, just kind of see how it develops, but not much longer than that. It's meant to be aged Chang now, youthful and delicious and fruity as it is now. Cool. Any questions? Any disagreements?
Woong, I was going to say, I'm kind of surprised that we have any sort of consensus. You had us taste it right after we opened it.
Uh-huh.
And when I first popped it open and tasted it, I was like, oh, red fruit. It was like a Beaujolais or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took it out of the fridge and I was like, where'd all the flavor go?
Yeah.
And now as it's warming up, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like, much more flavorful. It's really changed a lot. Just to, I think
Okay.
maybe just on being open, temperature. I'm not sure what it is, but it's
Yeah.
a totally different wine than it is when I first opened it.
Okay. Cool. Well, excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, everything about this wine is telling me that this is going to open up more. Yeah, I would love to see, yeah, maybe decant it or just drink it over a couple of days just to see where it goes. But yeah, there's something about this wine that's telling me it's going to change quite a bit, which is awesome. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, and I honestly, I love that you guys are picking up these kind of bay leaf, fruit leather, tomato leaf, actual leather. These are all like green pepper, uh, black pepper, all these kind of savory notes on the wine. It's not just the fruit. And then the fact that you're picking it up is excellent. And also another thing that I actually do like this, and then I actually wrote it in my note, is that it's something that we don't talk a lot about, but it's something that we should pay attention to, which is just the texture, mouthfeel of the wine. Like there's really like silkiness about this wine. Just really velvety and silky, and I like that. There's something feels luxurious about it. But yeah, this is a noticeable departure, as you probably saw. Departure from typical style of what we associate with Argentina, right? That if you've ever had Mendoza, Argentine Malbec, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, this is fresh, light, bright, this kind of style is also possible in Argentina. And that's the whole reason why I wanted to put this box together, but particularly put this wine in. This just goes to show that what a great place to grow grapes is in Argentina. Like you can make almost any style of wine, right? We've had sparkling, we've had the really floral white. We are having this, but we also know that there's like a really big punch you in the face kind of style wine that's there, and it can be grown. They can all be made within Argentina. So yeah, it's a pretty amazing place for viticulture. Anyways, let's play our favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? Yeah, Dave, like I am totally with you. There's a lot of like Savoie, Jura vibe about this wine, like 100%. 22, 25, 25, 30, 26, 25, 30. Well. You guys are all wrong this week. This wine is actually $19.50 on a retail shelf. It's like, I don't know. I think that's a hell of a deal. This is like a medium. We called it good to very good. It's enjoyable. It's delicious now. And the fact that it's under $20, I don't know. I think it's hard to beat, if you ask me. So there you have it, folks. There you have it. And that's another thing about Argentina, which is an incredible value. You can find like incredible value proposition. Sorry, what were you saying, Dave?
I said the label is beautiful as well.
Yeah, I like the label a lot.
So here's my question for you. And we had this sort of discussion around the Savoie Jura stuff as well. I love it, right? I would drink it regularly. But for non-wine club people, how do you convince somebody who just like sticks to basic things to drink a wine like this? right? I mean, we had this discussion a little bit like how you convince somebody in a restaurant to drink something new.
Yeah.
This is not a entry level wine, right? It may be from a price standpoint, but it's not from a taste standpoint. So is it just with the food that you're serving, or like, you know, if I'm going to buy more of this, which I would really, really like to, how do I sell it to my guests?
So to me, this also, I mean, we talked about Jura, Savoie, that kind of vibe, but that's also not like a super well-known region, right? Like a lot of people are like, where the fuck is Jura? Where the fuck is Savoie? But there's a lot of also similarity to this wine that is to Grenache or even Garnacha. So people who are used to kind of like higher end Southern Rhone wines, like I wouldn't call this Chateau de Pape because there's very different things that are going on here. But these kind of like big stewed, like red fruit kind of a thing runs a lot in Grenache or Garnacha that's grown in warmer place. So people who are like, I love Cote de Rhone, like, oh yeah, like try this. Like a little bit more lifted, obviously, higher acid than we would find in Cote de Rhone. But I think you can make that link. I think that's not a huge jump. People who like Southern Rhone wines, I don't think would necessarily taste this and be like, fuck this. This is so weird. Two, to your point, is I think having some food with it makes a lot of sense. Especially, you know, here in America, we're so used to, we as Americans, we consume wine without food all the time, right? We almost drink wine as like just a glass, like talking to people. But, you know, almost everywhere else in the world, it's like you don't just drink wine on its own. There's always food around. So having something around would make a lot more sense here. But I don't know. But I personally don't think this is that advanced either. I mean, sure, like there's savory component, there's very, very whole clustery, but so are a lot of the wines that are out there. There's a lot of whole cluster Pinot Noir that's out there. I don't think this one is particularly that difficult, honestly. But I don't know.
I mean, I don't
I
know.
think the biggest challenge
There's a
is
type of
actually
element to
people.
this that just takes it past that Cote de Rhone so much, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
and the nose is, I don't think, reflective of how the wine tastes, right? So I'm willing to try. Like I've, you know, with the Savoie stuff, I have served it to guests, and you know, with the right food, they loved it. But I do wonder, like, if you had a novice in here who only drinks like certain things, they might
Yeah.
not get it. Maybe I just
Oh,
need to be better friends.
of course.
I don't know.
But you know, this is where I'm gonna get some looks. But if there's one thing that I truly agree with Bill Cosby said, is that there's only one true way to fail, which is to please everyone. So,
Fair enough.
and yes, I just on the record, on the recording, quoted Bill Cosby during my Cosby. There you go. There we are, folks. There we are. Any other questions? All right, cool. Well, there it is. Did y'all like this one? Did anybody not like this one? Yeah, everybody like this one? I mean, I think it's delicious. I love this one. This is the kind of stuff
The
that
food pairing list, what do you pair this with? Like lamb, like something.
I think the lamb, like herbs, I think would be good. Like even rosemary, some of the stronger herbs, I think would be great. But honestly, to me, this has roast chicken written all over it. I think this would be great with roast chicken.
I happened to be making a pork loin tonight with like a heavy mustard sauce, and it was just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, I bet that was good. Yeah,
Perfect,
pork, yeah, chicken, pork, yeah, poultry, pork, all that. Yeah,
Protein
absolutely.
couldn't be shy. That's all you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you call any like VA on this?
Yeah.
Kind of cuts through a bit.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I don't get much VA here. When I first opened it, I thought I got a little bit of reduction. I felt a little bit of like a matchstick, match head, sulfury kind of a thing going on at first. It's kind of blown off now, but it wasn't all that strong. But no VA for me. Do you guys get VA? Does anyone else get VA?
When I first cracked it, I was like, I ate with it right away. It's like, oh, it's like a little bit of an Italian kind of zip to it.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some funk on and early on, but it's blown off. You're right.
Yeah, that little reduction, I got that for sure. Oh yeah, and then speaking of Italian, Joe, like and going back to Dave, your question, something else too. It's another reference point to give still. I mean, I don't know if your guess is not the people who only drink one kind of wine. I don't know if they'd be used to like Corvina from like Northeast Italy, from like from like Valpolicella, that kind of wine. But like I think there's a similar vibe that runs through here as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
Make good choices. That's all you're saying.
Exactly. Precisely. Any other questions? Excellent. Excellent.
Hey, not a question, but you were kind of mentioning the variety of wine, and I just texted you. I couldn't find it for the longest time, but we drank like a sweet wine when we were in Cafe Ate this past April.
Uh-huh.
Tell you, I would be hard pressed to tell it apart from a Sauternes. It was like very
it's probably Semillon. It was probably Botrytis Semillon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know for a fact that there's Semillon grown, quite a bit of Semillon grown in Argentina. I've never had a botrytized wine from Argentina, but I think that there's got to be a place where botrytis is possible.
It was pretty darn good, and I started looking around for it because I think it was about $10 a bottle. But
I'm telling you, Chile, Argentina, South America, it's like there's so much value here.
I don't think they import it, unfortunately. But if you can find it, let me know.
Sounds like a good side business, Dave.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know, that 16-hour flight is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I told you guys about my, well, I'm going to take the recording off real quick.